How are you?
Good, how are you?
Oh, good. The sun is shining, so that's good. It's just rained a lot here.
It's rained a lot everywhere.
It's just rained a whole lot, and yeah.
It's all right. We'll manage.
Oh, it's gonna make the grass grow. Things turn green fast up here. So I have green lawn and it's not brown. I'll take it.
Well, there. Well, there. I have blueberry bushes started, so there's hope.
There is hope.
All right. So, Amber.
I'm gonna be in and out of the meeting today. I'm actually at work and I'm leaving here in 30 minutes, but I have to commute home, so I'll be in and out.
Okay.
We have a quorum. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the room, 6, 7, 8, 9, that's quorum. All right. I'm gonna start the meeting. Welcome to the May meeting, I don't know where time flies, of the Maine Recovery Council. And I welcome all the members and we'll introduce ourselves in a minute. And I welcome, we have a couple guests here on site and any guests that are coming in via Zoom. For the most part, the agenda is the same with a few changes under the chair report. I'm gonna report some of the stuff from Brendan, is not here about the FOA request and our public policy. And a little bit about communication and then the other executive director contract and coordinator contract, and I think that is the only change in the agenda that was sent out.
And HRIA will be going before the chair report.
Okay,
They're joining it too.
they're going before there. So that's a switch. All right. Okay, so we'll start with welcomes and I'll start with Zoom. Deb.
Hello, everyone. My name is Deb Poulin. I am the Acting Deputy Director for the Office of Behavioral Health, and I am a governor appointee to the council.
You, Amber.
Hi, my name is Amber Pulsifer. I'm an individual with lived experience. I'm on the Programs and Grants Committee, and I am the clinical supervisor at the Comprehensive Treatment Center in Presque Isle.
Maggie.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Maggie McLaughlin. I am a member representing litigating subdivisions.
And Betsy.
And good afternoon. I'm Betsy Fitzgerald, and I also represent the litigating subdivisions.
And I'll remind people while I see Betsy that she is taking minutes online, so please, when you make motions, say who you are. She can't always tell by voices. Paul.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I'm Paul Vinsel. I'm a physician, member of the council. I am retired, having practiced emergency medicine and recovery medicine.
Todd.
Good afternoon, I'm Todd Bracken, I'm the sheriff in Lincoln County.
Representative Stover.
Hi, Holly Stover, House Representative for House District 48, including the towns of Whitby, South Convention, West Port Island, and South Bristol, where there was an earthquake tremor this morning.
Thank you. My name is Pat Kimball and I am the chair. Cassidy.
Cassidy Toole, the executive director of Maine Recovery Council.
Elizabeth
Fortier, coordinator for the Maine Recovery Council.
Jess.
I'm Tess Parks, I'm a person with lived experience, I'm the vice chair.
Thank you very much. We are all here, looking forward to the meeting. Hey, we will start the meeting with public comment. And we haven't had anyone who signed up for public comment, but you did all receive, I believe, an email from a Sean Parker. sharing us some information on his concerns about healthcare coverage and people who are currently receiving medication assisted treatment. And sort of asking the council to keep that in mind when they're looking at funding in regards to insurances being lost. I've lived through that before, it's not pleasant, and the council certainly appreciates his comments. And we will keep that in mind as we move forward with grant funding and also non-grant funded projects, so. Thank you, Sean, if you ever listen in on this, thank you for your comments. I don't see any other comment, all right, Chastity, is that it?
That's it.
All right, we will move down. Main agenda, we have the April minutes, you have those, I believe. And I'm looking for a vote and discussion on the April minutes. If there's no questions or concerns, can I hear a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved by Representative Stover and seconded by Tess Parks. Any discussion? If not, can we call the roll?
Betsy, do you want me to do it?
If you would, please, I don't have a list. Thank
Okay.
you.
Amber Pulsifer,
Yes.
Betsy Fitzgerald,
Yes,
Deb Poulin,
Yes.
Holly Stover,
Yes.
no Jamar. No Joe. Or Liz. Megan McLaughlin.
Yes.
Pat Campbell.
Yes.
Paul Bitzel.
Yes.
No Bregan. Tess Parks.
Yes.
Todd Brackett.
Yes.
Motion carries, thank you very much. Before we start again. My voice is very hoarse and I'm coughing. I am not contagious. It's asthma and allergies, so please just, but I'm not contagious. All right, so the next item on the agenda is, and I love this added thing that Chastity is doing about grantee spotlights. We actually get to hear from people that are receiving our funds and the neat things that they are, wonderful things they are doing with. So today, the spotlight is on the Maine Youth Action Network. And I'm going to leave it to them to do a presentation.
Yeah, I don't know, where would you like us to stand over here?
Wherever you want, even if you want to just come up to the table.
Yeah, of course, we can do that. Okay. You all have a slide deck that you can put up, yeah, cool, okay. Yes.
Hey Courtney, good to see you.
Hi. See you guys. I want to be like standing over you like a blue chair.
Yeah, if we sit, you could probably still see over us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. The nice thing about this is it has the time on the clock, so I will put the good sense of time as well.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. Okay, it looks like we've got the slide deck up and our friends that are online, so we're doing a hybrid presentation and we're gonna try and pass the mic quickly so everyone has some time within the 15 minutes that we're talking with you all. I'm Beth, I work at the Maine Youth Action Network, but I'm here on behalf of a larger group of folks who believe that thriving young people happens through collective impact. And so there's a host of organizations that are gonna talk with you all today. We couldn't all make it, and so we're just giving you like a little sliver, an amuse-bouche of the work that we do. If we, Elizabeth, if you don't mind, exactly, so this is a list of the organizations who are part of and who are doing work with the funding that you all gave us. We're starting year 2 of the 2-year contract we have with the Maine Recovery Council. And we are using on the 3rd slide, this theory of change for how the work happens and sort of moving across it. So we're gonna make sure you get this slide deck at the end so you can come back and read the small print later. But ultimately, we are in this last year. If you don't mind, yeah, perfect.
we're reaching a lot of young people across the state. And we're doing that using this method on the next slide, which talks about how it's called a mentor mindset. It talks about how high expectations paired with high levels of support are the recipe for success, or the ways that we realize thriving young people. I would add, and this is relevant for this group, this is also what holistic prevention looks like in action with young people. And so in addition to all those young people we reached, on the next slide, you'll see the number of young people and adults who participated in learning with us across the state, which was quite a lot from 2003 to 2023, excuse me, to 2025. And that happens with all the organizations who are part of our work. And we've been expanding on that in the next slide to really think of social capital networks or hubs in our work. And so what you'll see or what you'll hear, and I think this aligns with the 2024 prevention recommendations that you all had, we're really trying to target specific groups of young people and bolster their networks by going to the places where young people already are, by partnering with organizations who have trust, who young people trust, and then expanding the work from there. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Sue Campbell, who's with Maine, to talk about the GSTA network building work that they did over the last year. That's going to be followed by Jillian Foley, who's talking about the Young People's Caucus, and why that work. And Courtney, Ariel here from URAP, is going to anchor for us. And so, Sue, I'm passing to you in the ether.
Great. Just go to the next slide if you would. So hello, everyone. I'm Sue Campbell. I'm the executive director here at Maine. Many of you may know who we are. For those of you who do not, we are a statewide organization that provides supports and resources to build welcoming and affirming communities for Maine's LGBTQ youth. And the way that we do this is in a multi-tiered model. So we do a lot of direct youth work, but we also support families and adults who support our youth. And so with this funding through the MRC and Mayan, what we've done is to take that funding and use it to expand the GSTA network across the state, which is providing mentors and supports for our young people in schools. And so we do that through technical assistance. We have a statewide GSTA student council where they work to help develop and support our regional GSTA meetups. They receive a stipend for that work that they do. We've also been hosting a variety of educator meetups because our educators are under a lot of scrutiny in this current political climate, and that gives them a space to network and talk and recognize that they are not alone in the work that we do. We also do school visits, and then we run statewide leadership retreats and our Rainbow Ball weekend, which actually was just this past weekend, where we had about 160 youth and their adult advisors come together for a weekend of education and community building, and they get to have an open mic night on Friday night and a big Rainbow Ball dance on Saturday night. And it's really pretty magical when you get to see these young people come together and be in a space where often for the very first time, they don't have to hide who they are. And it's really pretty incredible. We had representation from 15 out of 16 counties, and 42 schools across the state were represented at that one weekend event. And so what this map here is just a representation of where the GSTAs are. The largest portion of those, of course, are in southern Maine. Cumberland County has 34, followed by York that has 15, and then Penobscot has around 11, and then the rest of them, the rest of the 105, or about 50 or so, are scattered throughout the state in our more rural regions. And so we spend a lot of time trying to get into those rural regions because those are the spaces where our youth are often not supported. We're able to do outreach this year to, we have 121 advisors. I think we reached about 115 of those this year. And there are between 500 and 700 young people that engage and participate in those GSTAs. And so while our youth are in schools more than they are anywhere else, it is critical that these supports are being provided. And in this current political climate where schools are under fire, many of these GSTA advisors and students are feeling even more pressured to have the supports that we're able to provide to them. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have or pass the mic. Thank you all so much for all of your support in this work.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Most of the GMPAs, they're housed in different places, are they centered around the high schools mostly, is that?
High school,
and
middle
there.
school, middle schools, high schools, and we also have a few K-8 schools that have them for like 7th and 8th graders. But the majority of them are high schools, and then there are some that are in middle schools. And then, of course, school configurations are different. So we have some schools that are like K-8, and we have some schools that are like 7-12 or grade 6-12, and they have some level of combined supports within those schools for the young people.
Thank you.
Hey Sue, this is a Tess Parks in the room. I appreciate all the work that you do. I was an LGBTQ youth with substance use disorder, and I know how critical the services that you're providing are for young people. Thank you for highlighting the political climate that we're seeing. The thing that has concerned me the most is the impact that it will have on our young folks. Are you hearing out in the field what impacts, if any, it's having on either youth substance use rates, suicidal ideation, self-harm?
Yeah, it's our young people are scared, as are their families. And, unfortunately, there are often coping mechanisms such as, tobacco and other substance uses that are used. And, the more we can provide supports and resources for our young people, the more likely they are to not be using those substances. And so, this is part of that work, is trying to ensure that every young person has an adult and have peers that they can also rely on for the support that they need. So, our goal is that all young people will thrive, and the current climate is not making that easy.
All right, thank you.
And so we're going to pass to Jillian to talk about the work of the storytelling work for Young People's Caucus and WILAD. Elizabeth, if you don't mind moving to the next slide. Thank you.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? Yes. Okay. Hi, everyone. Jillian Foley. I'm the project director for the Place Matters project and the Young People's Caucus at the USM Catherine Cutler Institute. I work alongside our partners with WILA as well. And like Beth said, I'm here to tell you a little bit about our work under this funding, which we've called the Storytelling for Change Project. I'm going to try to talk fast. Basically, the idea of the project is that we are working to support creative self-expression for youth who've experienced the criminal, legal, and/or the child welfare systems, so that we can amplify their voices and their experiences and their ideas for systems change. Next slide, please. So the goals of the project for youth are broadly to increase community connections and their experience of belonging, to grow leadership skills, and to promote healing through storytelling opportunities. In terms of systems change, we're hoping that this will lead to shifts in narratives about systems impacted youth by centering their voices, and ultimately advance youth-led solutions to address systemic gaps and needs. Next slide, please. So what this looks like, basically we're creating opportunities through workshops, events, etc., for young people to explore multi-method storytelling. So not just one method, but they're exploring things like songwriting and performing music. They're participating in panel discussions and other public speaking events at like events or conferences. They're learning skills to submit public testimony, and they're participating in what we call long form interviews in order to have segments on things like podcasts. Next slide. And so this is just a little snapshot of what this looks like. So you'll see some photos of some youth and some adult partners that we work with at some recent events So, we've had youth perform original music at the Beyond the Bars Maine conference. We recently worked with our partners to bring some youth to the Mayan conference to speak on a youth adult panel. We host a regular segment on the Justice Radio podcast where we invite youth as well as adult advocates to come and talk about youth issues. We co-hosted the recent youth-led gubernatorial forum alongside some of our community partners, which allowed youth to interview all the Democratic candidates for governor's race. And we bring youth to the State House. Sometimes it's just to go and see the State House and get the lay of the land. And then other times they go and they attend public sessions and they have the option to participate by giving testimony if they choose to do so. And lots more. So that's just a quick snapshot, and I will stop there. And I believe I'm passing over to Courtney. I'm happy to answer questions at the end. I think we have time as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Ann. And hi, everybody. My name is Courtney Gary Allen. I'm the executive director of MIRA. It's nice to see you all again and to be in the room with you. I also want to acknowledge Joe Finnemore is online with me. He is our youth director. And he helps to support our youth caucuses across the state, as well as Esperanza and Serenity, who are our youth allies, young people who lead the caucuses in Kennebec and Washington County. They're at school right now, so they couldn't be here. But yeah, so if we could go to the next slide.
We're not fun. I don't know.
I'll get it. That's okay. I will tell you about our work without the slide. So MIRA hosts youth caucuses. They are young people who have been impacted by substance use. And I think where this work really originates from is knowing that, and we started about in 2020 with Mayan and really seeing that young people are already part of recovery communities. We see them in recovery centers across the state. We see them in recovery meetings and harm reduction programs. And what does it mean and how do we support young people to really create their own spaces within recovery communities? And so the idea was born that if we listen to young people and let them lead, that they could create their own spaces within recovery communities. Today we have a caucus in Kennebec County and in Washington County, and we're about to launch a new one. I can't tell you where yet, but I think you'll be very excited about where it will be. We host our youth caucuses inside of recovery community centers across the state. So our work with the Maine Recovery Council with the young people is that young people have been, there we go, thank you. Young people have been working on a youth-led naloxone and overdose prevention training. And this work really begins a couple of years ago when they went to the State House and filmed a movie and pretended like they were going to pass a bill, and they passed a fake bill that would require naloxone training in Maine high schools. Then they decided that their work would take them back to the State House for real this time and partnered with Senator Matt Pouliot to actually pass that piece of legislation. So now all across Maine, Maine high schools have to provide naloxone training. So once they passed that law, they decided that they needed to be able to train each other. And so they developed, with your guys' support, a youth-led naloxone and overdose prevention training led by young people training other young people. And so for the last year, they have been doing that work. We have trained 13 facilitators, held 15 training sessions, and trained over 120 young people all across Maine, as well as adults that come with them. They also distributed over 200 boxes of naloxone and are super excited to continue that work in the next year. And really at the core of all of this is that young people, when we listen to young people, we believe that they have the power to change the world, really simply, and that they deserve spaces within the recovery community and to listen to young people. And so that is their work. And I will take the next slide. All right. And so over the next year, this group of wonderful organizations, and particularly young people, are really looking forward to focusing on continuing to build the connection across communities, youth communities, as well as building for tomorrow, really supporting the capacity of young people to lead in their communities and create change. And I will wrap up. Am I about on time?
Yeah, I think we're pretty close.
Pretty close?
We tried hard. Do you all have questions for any of the folks online who brought some friends or us that we could answer for you about the work we did in the first year? Where we're going, I see some of you have the larger impact report, but has lots more pictures and good stories.
Mine kind of spreads out to a lot of different organizations. How does an organization that works with youth apply to get involved with Mine?
Well, that's a good question. Well, we have given away every last dollar that you all gave us back out to all of our partners. That's the change we just made for year 2 to be able to fund the work. So we are excited to be in partnership with folks, but out of Maine recovery dollars to share at this point. And so Mine's work in the whole of this is to help to create connections and to offer professional development for the staff that are working at all these organizations, so that it's not in the same way that we don't want prevention to be siloed from harm reduction, et cetera, so that work that is happening with Indigenous young people isn't siloed from the work happening with queer kids around the state. So we're doing the convening and the facilitating the learning. When we host those types of things, we try and make them open to any of the organizations around the state that are interested, and we use our flagship event, the Maine Youth Leadership Conference, to invite other organizations in and to build those connections. Not just so that I know who they are and I could, invite them to something, so that Courtney knows who they are, so Sue knows, et cetera.
Amber, do you have a question? I just see Amber's hand, I don't see Amber, so here she is.
My hand's not up.
I think that's the pointer.
Oh, I thought, oh, it is the pointer.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, sorry, Amber, that's just the way that pointer was. It was right on your name, thank you. Any other questions for
I
her?
would ask, and team, if you were to get more money from the Maine Recovery Council, what would you do? How could you expand? To kind of Paul's question.
I was gonna say, I think Paul is onto something. We have a large group of partners here who are doing good work, but we can't be everywhere in the state yet. And so having more folks at the table is always a good thing, I think, when you're trying to do collective impact work. But I'm curious because I think there are some specific things that folks would do with more money that are leading some of the projects. So Courtney or Sue or Jillian, Devin and Joe are also here too. Is there something else that you would add in response to that question?
I mean, I could jump in. So I would invest in young people. So one of the things that's been really special about this money is that we're able to pay young people for their work. Almost all of MRAP's funding has gone directly to the youth who have led this work in the form of either we only hire young people to run their caucuses, and then also we provide stipends to all of the youth trainers. We would expand, I think, well, one, I'd ask them, but two, I think that they would say that they would want to expand their reach into recovery community centers across Maine and expand their reach particularly into high schools to train other young people.
And I think for us, we would, in a similar fashion of pay young people, we pay stipends to any of our youth who engage on any sort of a council or a board. And one of the things that our young people are asking for now is how do we get more involved with what's happening to our world, civic engagement. And so we've started a small civic engagement group, but if we had additional funding, we could really expand that work so that our young people could really have a voice at the table, whether that's at their local school board table or if that's, at a state level. And so I think that's my first thought is that's how we would spend some additional funding.
I will just continue that theme and say I was going to say a very similar thing, that we would probably engage more what we call youth leaders, because we also pay everyone stipends and pay them for their time for attending any event or training or group. And so we would probably be able to bring on more youth leaders to hold the work and lead as sort of like near peer mentors in some of the work that they're doing. And then at the same time, we're trying to expand sort of like a new menu of trainings that we're sort of launching out there and get more youth and adults trained in a variety of leadership and systems change skills. So we would probably use some funding to expand and host more trainings as well.
Super quick. I just want to highlight that maybe to some people, it just says, like, it sounds like we're just saying we're paying young people. But to these young people, some of these young people are the most marginalized, the poorest within our communities. And they're bringing home money to themselves and to their families. I've watched some of our young people get to buy their shoes for school. Others have had to put it on the table for rent. Like, this is real money in the hands of the young people who have been most impacted by all the various different ways and identities that they show up in the world. And it's really special to get to watch them have their first job or like show up to do their work. And all my young people call it their work.
Great. I really thank you for sharing all that with us, and it's just nice to see that the money's going, that the funding that we granted out is going to really good things, and certainly the youth of our state are something we should be cherishing and honoring and letting them have a voice. So I really appreciate it. There's no other questions. I'm just gonna say thank you very much, all of you, for your time.
I invite you to come see the young people. They will be at the Governor's Summit presenting their naloxone training.
So.
Hearing important mention the movie, I'm assuming a lot of you don't know what that is.
What did I say?
When you mentioned the young people's movie.
Oh, if you haven't seen it, watch it.
I'll send it out to all of you as part of the Recovery in Maine series that Governor Mills invested in. It was really great.
Cool.
Watch for the redhead. He's the one that testifies. They'll be fine.
And one of those redheads, I have one of my own. All right, thank you. I'm just gonna have introduced quickly a few of our members that have joined us. Joe, would you introduce yourself?
Sure, Joe Everett, member of the council and the chair of the Permanent Grants Committee, so I was late.
You, Jamar?
Jamar Williams, member of the council, again, all of that will be late as well.
It's okay. Elizabeth?
Hi there, Liz Blackwell Moore, she, her pronouns. I'm the director for Cumberland County Public Health, and had lots of technical difficulties, but here I am.
Feel your pain. Thank you all. All right. Next item on the agenda is the HRIA, where they're going to give us a presentation in regards to the RFP for prevention. All of you should have received a draft in the mail to review. And the real goal is, I've got my fingers crossed, is that we review it, and we vote on it to move it forward. But we're going to listen to the presentation today, ask some questions, and then hopefully a vote to move it forward. Turn it over to you. Which one's going first?
Hold on, we're still waiting. Alright, now he's on.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Alright,
Hello,
Megan,
hello.
I'll let you start then.
Okay. Hello, this is Heidi Klein, and I've had the pleasure of meeting with you one time before. I serve as a director within our grant making services within HRIA, and I've had the pleasure of working with Ben and Brittany, who you've probably met before. And most importantly, I've had the pleasure of doing some collaborative thinking with Liz Blackwell Moore. So what we're here to do today is present to you at a very high level the proposed request for proposals. And let me start my slide deck, and you'll make sure that you can see it. Let's see. Are you seeing it?
Not yet.
Is that yeah?
Okay, because I can't see you, but you'll tell me. Not yet?
No.
Okay, hold on. I'm sure I can do this. There we go. All right, I am sending a request to share.
You should be allowed now.
Okay, let's see if it works now. Slide deck, maybe?
Not yet. Heidi, will you drop the slides into our internal Teams chat, and maybe Brittany or I can see if it works for us to share?
Let's do that. Okay, it's loading, Ben. It will take just one sec. So what I'm gonna, as I said, what I'm gonna plan to do is just walk you through some of the key pieces. My goal is to share with you how we got to where we are with our proposed RFP. And then the pieces where we have some remaining questions for you. All right, let's see, let me try one more time. I think I finally got it. Let's see. There we go. Okay.
Got it.
There we go. From the beginning. Here we go.
You're there now. Just put it in presenter view and you're good.
Where am I going? From the beginning. There we go.
Yay, it's there.
It's always the technology that's the hardest for me. Thank you all for being patient. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take a few minutes to share with you the request for proposal. Right now, it's named as Strengthening Community Conditions. It is focused on the prevention work. I'm going to share with you the key components of the proposal, our plan for announcing the funding opportunity, and then a draft timeline that we're working on. So our goal was to ensure that we had something that aligned with the MRC prevention recommendations. You may remember this was the work group Liz and others worked on their final report. And this funding opportunity is for recommendation number 1. So you'll see they came out of that process together with 3 primary recommendations. The first of which is to allow funding to support and expand culturally relevant, community-led, and youth-led efforts that improve the community conditions in communities highly impacted by opioid use disorder. So that was our first charge. I want to remind you that as we've been designing the RFP and the review process, that we brought forward what we thought were some of the key principles for equitable grant making. And that is the ones that are most important for here, in addition to peer review, are being explicit about focusing on priority populations and where there have been some prior gaps in funding, whether that be by geography or type of organization. We're designing it to not over-rely on scores, but also people's deep understanding of what's happening in community and what the needs are. Our intent is to focus funding as possible on smaller and or emerging organizations and really prioritize and support work that highlights the connections with community and that are focused on changing those community conditions, which is why we're calling it a community conditions opportunity. So again, to remind you, the focus of the funding is this priority number 1, focusing on community-led and youth-led coalitions that include collaborations among community-based organizations, prevention partners, people living in communities most impacted by substance use who are working together toward a common goal, shared decision-making, and coordinated action. I heard someone just use the language of collective impact, which is very much aligned. The focus will be on multi-sector coalition partners, and what I've listed here are some of the members that we would call out in an RFP to say this gives you a sense of what we mean by a coalition and the kinds of partners would be there. You'll see that right up front are people who have been impacted by substance use. So that could be either people themselves or families or communities that are greatly impacted. Public health organizations, grassroots and advocacy organizations, faith-based, nonprofits, governmental agencies, behavioral health organizations, some health or healthcare, hospital organizations, community development, local and regional foundations, and then a small amount of businesses. So again, this is who would be eligible for applying. Then what we're asking them to do is really focus, the content would be focused on changing community conditions. So the idea is to move further, what we call further upstream, to address really like how and why are we seeing challenges of opioid and substance use disorders in our communities, and what can we do to strengthen the community conditions that promote and improve health and well-being. This is where you may have heard we've been talking about the need perhaps for some capacity building and technical assistance, because we know that we have folks doing really good and hardworking communities, and we want to support them in moving a little bit further upstream to the community conditions. So we thought it'd be helpful to explain what that is. In the RFP, we give these examples that the focus is really on changing those economic, social, and physical contexts that give rise to the use of substances. And ways in which we would know we're changing community conditions include passing or changing of laws, policies, ordinances, resolutions, mandates, or regulations. That could be either at the governmental level or through organizations themselves, whether that be healthcare organizations at work sites or in community institutions. Another example would be changing the processes, power structures, or relationships. This is where the idea of really having community voice, particular people who with lived experience and community and youth-led efforts is important. And then another example would be of changing community conditions would be work that's related to advocacy or civic engagement or power building. Again, these are all examples of ways that we would be looking at moving further upstream in the community conditions to address how and why opioid and substance use seem to be taking hold in particular communities. The way that the grant opportunity is structured is that there would be two different streams that folks could apply for. This really gets at that idea of enabling funding to going to smaller organizations or coalitions that are emerging and or want to shift some of their focus away from treatment or individual work further upstream into community conditions. So the first type of grant we're calling a planning grant. And that's for the coalitions who are either moving it from their focus from individual and direct services to those upstream community conditions. It's really to give them time to plan about what does it mean to make that shift, what changes, doing some more assessment of what's needed in their community. It's before acting. But it's really what we have noticed is that we often short shrift and don't fund that essential planning time for some culture change and focus in coalitions. So that's what the planning grant is for. The implementation grant really is for existing coalitions that are already busily working to address upstream community conditions and giving them implementation funding. And that would be giving them implementation funding for technical assistance, capacity building, coalition, and then specific programs there. They want to either expand their geographic reach, so they want to bring in more parts of their community or more communities, say, in their county, and or they really want to focus in on expanding their reach to high priority populations. So there's a new group of individuals, a new group of connections to bring in. So those are folks who are really ready, are doing the work, and they just need money to implement. There's no distinction in the ways that we have made it in terms of what monies would be available, but recognizing that these are two very, very important investments and that they really are different. Our intent, you'll see by the note here, is really to be able to help folks also who are emerging coalitions and who want to shift. So we're not asking for necessarily a high bar of you're already doing the work, but we understand this is a shift. Our intent is to offer capacity building to coalitions before the application period. And there are two different ways that we would offer this capacity building. So one is through some offering of 2 to 3 sessions for folks who really want to understand better, what do we mean by digging into community conditions work? What would that look like in terms of shifting strategies? What are some of the potential approaches? So our hope is that folks who may think like this is a direction we want to go in, but we need to understand it a little better. We need some help in actually framing what our proposal would be, is putting together these capacity building sessions. This would happen at the beginning of the opening of the RFP we'd have the RFP open for 8 weeks. So this could happen in the initial weeks, still giving the coalitions time to put together their application. Simultaneously, we will have just general grant application technical assistance. So helping folks understand what does it mean to be eligible, what does it mean, what does the content mean, and then of course being available to applicants to understand the application process itself. Smart Simple is our grants management system. This is the portal by which folks would have to input their application. We want to make sure that we're ready to support anyone who's applying in these areas as well. As folks are going through we feel it's very important to be explicit in any RFP, what the scoring criteria are, so that applicants understand the metrics by which their application will be scored. So we have 2 steps in the process. I previewed this for you before, but the review committee is going to be looking at 4 primary criteria for looking at the applications. And we are explicit in the RFP that they're looking for alignment with the funding purpose, that we're looking at the coalition strength and operations. Again, this idea that it's a coalition and not a single organization, but they're looking at multiple sectors coming together to make change. The level of community engagement, this speaks to ensuring that community partners are leading, youth are leading some of the work, and importantly that they are getting paid. I heard you talking about stipends to students in the last presentation, the same idea, that if we need to have some ways, we want to see that the coalitions are thinking along that line. Like, it's very important that coalitions are investing in communities and youth in doing the work. And then, of course, feasibility, like, is what the folks are proposing, can it be done with the level of resources they're asking for, in the amount of time they're asking for, and that given that these are short-term grants, they're 1-year grants, or up to 3, that they have enough time and a leeway to get that done. So that's what the review committee is going to be doing. You may recall we've suggested a review committee that is separate from the full MRC. So we are sure that the review committee would have folks who actually have expertise in community conditions work, and also have expertise in what's happening in communities that are mostly impacted by substance use and the opioid epidemic. Though that group will do that, we've made it very clear that the MRC then would come back and do one more pass in reviewing applications and recommendations, looking sort of zoom out to see, are the applications really filling the gaps in prior funding? Do we have appropriate geographic coverage with special attention to the rural areas? And are the grants, if they are approved, being directed to those communities that are most impacted by opioids? So that's that 2-step process. Again, this is all outlined in the RFP so that any applicant is very clear about the full process. That's a really important piece of equitable grant making. So that's the RFP itself. I'm just going to walk through all this and then plan to share with you and offer opportunity for questions and answers. We've talked about the RFP being distributed through, your regular channels, right? So there's the MRC website that folks are used to going to. We'll have a link to our own website that we'll create on behalf of this call for applications, where we would have the RFP, and the access to entering into the application portal. We'd also be looking for any regular mechanisms that you have for getting out the information. We'll create a flyer in addition to that's sort of more engaging with, here's why you should apply. Have you been thinking about this? So a little bit more talky, a little bit more promotional. And then we're thinking there might also be some targeted email to those folks that you really know you're hoping will apply. So we have a few questions for you. I'll come back to this about how we best reach those potential applicants. There's some opportunities there. I'm just going to go to my last slide, which is the timeline. And then I'm happy to go back to anything else. So the timeline here is that we would have this meeting. We're hoping that you approve of the grant guidelines. If you do, we will be ready by mid-June to distribute the request for proposals. In July is when we would hold the capacity building sessions. So this is while the application is out in the community. And then we would recruit and provide an orientation for anyone who joins us as a review committee member. Our hope is that we would have a combination of up to 6 MRC members and up to 12 external, meaning non-MRC members. Perhaps some of them come from the group that helped develop the prevention recommendations in the first place. That would all happen in July. We would close the application window in August. We'd have the review meetings in early September, and then we would be ready probably starting by October 8th, but certainly before November 12th, to bring back to the full MRC the final recommendations and decision making. So that's the process overall of how we would go through from today through having the recommended applicants for funding. And notification would happen afterwards. So that is my full slide deck. I'm going to pause now because I know it was fast. It was a lot to absorb, and I want to make sure that I used not so much time that I haven't left time for you all to ask your questions. I'm going to stop sharing and ask you to ask me. And I can go back and bring up any slide that would be helpful. Hopefully you did get to see the whole RFP as well in draft, and I can pull up any section of that as well. If you have concerns either about the focus, the potential applicants, or the process. I took you all the way through the review process because, again, we want to make sure that we are clearly stating all of those pieces in the request for proposals, both to ensure that you're getting the applicants that you want and you're getting the information that you need in order to make your decisions.
Thank you. Maggie, did I see you had a hand up?
Just FYI, Heidi, your slides are still up on shared screen.
Thank you.
I did not have a hand up, but I do have
Okay.
some
My
thoughts.
hand is everywhere. I have a quick question before I take questions. One is, if I missed it, is there a max of funding that you're putting on these applications?
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So here, let me, I can pull up one other item for you, assuming I can find it. And I will share again.
And my second question is around, is there anything in there that they're sharing if they already receive funding from any of the opiate settlement dollars?
No, thank you for raising that. We had not thought about, is that an important criteria for you? That are you saying that if they have, they shouldn't, or if they haven't?
No, I don't think it, for me, just me.
Okay.
And other members from there. I don't think it excludes them, but it would be curious to know in the grant, are they already receiving funding? And is it for a similar project or another project? And is it from the municipalities, from the AG's office, or from the Recovery Council?
Right.
It's just, I don't know how other members feel, but it's just, are they receiving any other opiate settlement dollars?
Mm-hmm. We have not developed all the questions yet, so let me give your team pause to consider whether or not, of course, that's an important data point that we can collect. The question is, does that affect decision making, in which case we ought to put it in the RFP so folks are clear that if you already have funding from the MRC, right, the opioid settlement funds, you would or would not be eligible for this.
I don't think I would put it that they're not eligible. I think, in fact, sometimes that might be, we might be more inclined to approve them if they're using settlement funds from like the municipalities. And they're combining different funding sources for their project would be a positive.
Okay.
Um,
Anybody?
I have a question though.
Oh.
We were supposed to get a copy of, what were we supposed to get a copy of to prepare this today? I don't think I got it.
The RFP.
The RFP.
The email.
I don't recall getting it. Would you be able to email it to me again?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I pulled that up on the screen. Hopefully you're seeing it. But just to go back, what we're working with is the assumption that there's $1.95 million total to give out. Yeah.
Do you mind zooming in on your end? I don't know if I can do it on our side. It's really
I
tiny.
believe that I can. I'm looking and I'm looking. My apologies because I can't figure out why it is not.
Okay, so it's 1.95 million.
Oh, I see why.
With 5 to 8 awards participated.
How's that?
That's much better, thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. Took me just a moment. Yes, so because we're thinking it's up to 3 years of funding, and we had a range of, I think we had it in here, right? That the maximum request for the grant would be 125 per year per coalition, right? And that 125 would be available for regardless of which of the two strands, whether it's a planning grant or an implementation grant. And so if you do the math, it means there are 5 to 8 awards. And we felt it was important for folks to understand sort of the level of competitiveness of the grant opportunity, and then also to just, sort of ground truth with all of you that is your intentionality. There is still room in here for us to play with that in terms of the maximum amount or the putting in a different range of funding if that's what you so wish.
Maggie and then Representative Stone.
Thank you. This is looking really, really good, and it's so exciting to see it moving forward and getting closer to launching. So thank you for all the great work that you put into it and integrating a lot of the feedback we've had along the way. I have two kind of questions, one super minor and one is a slightly more substantive. The substantive one is really around the scoring criteria. Right now, it's a fixed set of scoring criteria for both situations, both the implementation side and the planning grant. And functionally, I feel that those serve different purposes. And so in this scoring criteria as it is right now, really closely aligns with more of the planning criteria, I would say, in the planning grant. Whereas per se on an implementation grant would perhaps want to see the addition of some other elements like capacity of the implementing organization to deliver on what they're stating, and the potential impact. Is it going to be a high impact project? Is it going to be a low impact project? And those being scored accordingly. Can you speak a little bit to the thinking behind just one scoring criteria as opposed to breaking those out into two for the two different functions?
Yeah, part of it was to try and simplify both for reviewers as well as for applicants. So that is not necessarily a primary. I think your question about capacity, like do they have the capacity to carry out what they're asking for, and impact fits within what we're talking about here for feasibility, Maggie. And we can certainly strengthen the questions that are here. These are the questions that we would be asking applicants to write to and for our reviewers to consider. So will it lead to the expected outcomes? Is the timeline realistic and achievable? But then also, is the budget aligned with the activities and cost effective? We could add more to this that gets at feasibility. We could also add one about capacity. Capacity also fits within here in the coalition strength and operations. We could add another question right there.
Yeah,
right?
I think maybe tailoring it. So like the coalition might be really strong, but the implementing organization may not be, which wouldn't
Got it.
necessarily be an issue unless you're under the implementation side.
Okay.
I would think on the implementation side, when we're looking at the coalition component, we want to see that, oh, this implementation came from a coalition level discussion, and that linkage is very strong, and that the implementation will be disseminated back to the coalition in terms of impact. But I'm really looking at, is the organization that's implementing strong enough to do what they say that they're going to do? Is what they're proposing in line with their capacity and background in this area? If not, that's okay, but we just are recognizing that it's more of a risk, and that could be totally fine. But that kind of thinking about, and similarly, like, you know, an organization that may be working on legislation that is really pie in the sky, it may be worthwhile, and we want to invest in that because the impact would be really high if it were passed, as opposed to, say, a smaller impact where maybe it would transform 3 people's experience or something
Got
like
it.
that. So factoring in what is the end impact if it goes well, to the score itself. Is this going to deliver a huge change or not?
Great. Yeah, we can definitely modify and have a criteria that is only for implementation. So thank you. This is really helpful. I'll go back and look at that.
Awesome. My really small, not substantive
Yeah.
one is just under the Androscoggin County. You put Bangor. I think you mean Lewiston.
Oh, thank you for checking us. Yes.
No worries.
So was it here? Yes. Oh, yes, because we've listed Bangor twice. So thank you for catching that. Okay.
Question. Yeah. Okay. I would,
No, I'm not.
as Representative Silver's up.
Yeah, thank you very much, Heidi. I think it's wonderful. I have a question. I've got 2 organizations that are regularly contacting me about this. Can I send them this, or should I wait till June to send them information?
Oh, you should send them to the.
Probably wait till June just because we are still tinkering, particularly based on the feedback we're giving. I think it would, you know, at this point, previewing that it's coming in June and the focus on community conditions and the intent, I don't think is going to change, right? But some of the other details might change. So, and so I think it would be good for them to know that it's coming, that there will be a full 8-week application process. So we're hoping that gives folks enough time to really think about it once they get it. It's not, we try to have sort of a fairly extensive development time for them rather than crunching it too much. So does that feel comfortable to you to hold off?
Well, I have a suggestion.
Yes, it does.
Because you don't want to look, that there's a conflict. If people contact you about it, send them to the website. Don't directly send
To
them.
what website?
They're having a website. They go on our website, it'll be on there. Plus, from there, it'll instruct them where to go. But I would avoid sending them directly information as a council member and direct them to the website where everybody else is going.
And that would be.
Also just direct to the info box.
Yeah.
And send everyone our way, and we can answer and direct people where to go.
Send them to you.
Yeah.
And this grants at hria.org, is that up and running yet? That website?
Not quite.
Okay,
Not yet.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and we will have set up on our side, what's not listed, what you'll see here is that we do have, actually, I just got news from my colleague that indeed both this grants at HRIA, which is really just for the application portal, is open. And we did set up what you'll see here, an email for the MRC at HRIA, that is the one that we want folks to come to. And what we'll do is we'll put a placeholder, we'll do an automatic response on that email that says, basically coming soon. Here's what you can expect. And it will probably, once we have this key information ready, we will post not only like a little, what I called like the teaser language of here, who's it's for, that this is going to be the purpose. Like we'll probably have a purpose statement. We'll have this key information. And as once people contact us, they'll then be in our queue. So as soon as we release the RFP, we'll be sure that they get it.
Great, thank you very much.
Sure.
Representative Stover.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think this looks really great. I had a couple one statement.
Please.
I think 1.95 million that's amazing, right? And it's great if it's 5 projects, that's, that would give everybody nearly $100,000 estimate that they could run on each of those 3 years. That's wonderful. If we go up to 8, I don't know if you're gonna thin that soon. And I love 8. I love 8 awards. I'm just wondering if we want to talk about increasing the funding. We want to set a price per project. So we give a good launch rather than undercutting the projects and having 8, which I love the idea of 8, but only giving them each $200,000, which is not over 3 years. I mean, just really fitting the suit. That's one. And the others, I'm just curious, because I live in Lincoln County, putting us with Knox and Waldo. So I don't think people realize what a big area that is. Building a coalition among partners who are up to 2 hours away or an hour and a half, certainly 2 hours on the summer drive, but might be really. Is it that you can go by county or you have to go by region?
Oh, okay, I see that Liz has her hand up. So I think, Liz, do you want to answer those 2 questions rather than me? Because it's really about the work that you're helping to lead.
Sure. I think, Holly, great questions. I think the 8 and 5 award, like sort of describe like 5 to 8, has to do with that planning grants might be less funding. They might need less funding up front to do a planning grant before they get to implementation. So it kind of allows for variation in what people are asking for. That was my sort of assessment. I'm certainly Heidi and folks might have a different thought about that. I also so if we get all implementation that get chosen, it might be that it's only 5, but it allows for some variation. In terms of like the locations, I think we that's what's built in here is that folks have to already be a coalition. So they wouldn't be forming new ones per se. And I think my sense is that you sort of when you asked where people are, you were kind of defining about some of the public health. Were you using kind of the public health districts, Heidi? And so those counties are under a public health district. It doesn't mean that a project couldn't be just a small location. It just happens that you put in, it's in Knox County and it's in these, 7 towns. So it's more just knowing where they are.
Okay, so you could put in an application for Lincoln County.
Right.
Sure.
Exactly.
Or I look at Southern Maine, I'm like, holy cow, you're not building a coalition with the Interscott's and Cumberland, Saginaw, New York.
Right. So it might be that a coalition like has, a few towns, or maybe it's one that already existed but has a project they want to do and it's only one town, or it's a whole county. I think there's it allows for some variation, and this is just to say where are you located so that we can then see that when we're trying to decide on what to fund, how we're choosing things across geography, but also demography as well.
That's helpful. Thank you, Liz.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you for the questions, because oftentimes what we do is we put out the original RFP and then we post what we call FAQs. And so as we will be, as I said, there's sort of technical assistance along the way. We will be collecting and recording any requests or any questions that we receive through this mrc@hria.org email. And be able to see, oh, people are confused by something. Oh, we gave this answer. Let's post that publicly. So whoever comes in with the next question, they can see that maybe it's already been answered, right? So that question about does it need to be countywide? Can it be a new coalition? Those would be sort of the basis for what we might put into an FAQ that where it feels like the RFP itself is not sufficiently explicit.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, just one question is in follow-up, really, or kind of aligned, I think, with Holly's, and that is, this, Liz, this is kind of the initial rollout in the prevention pillar, right? So, it just seems to me that the amount of 1.95 is lower than I expected. But you're expecting, she was focused more on the 5 to 8. I was focused more on the total. It seems low to me, but maybe there's more planned in the future, to make that last longer or something. So that's, and then I have a second question that's not related to funding.
Liz, you want to answer that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Ted, you want to put more money in there? I'm down. Let's do it. I think like we all decided together, we did that first round of funding in the first year or two in which we put money towards prevention. And then this is money that we all decided on last February to do this amount. Because we also have money we were putting into the Maine CDC, and they're doing 18 to 25-year-old prevention work. And then we have funding that we still have yet to figure out exactly how we're going to do it. We were waiting for this to happen to put out for 2-generation programming. But I think this is like such a good model. If folks want to add more in here, we can also do that. So we could do one round and see how it goes and see what we get, and we can add funds and do another round. So yes, Todd, I'm going to hold you to that.
Well, I had forgotten, thank you, Liz. I hadn't thought of the CDC work. I was just trying to think of the money that was. I know we never really decided we were gonna break things up equally between pillars, but prevention is a real important aspect of it, and I had forgotten about those other streams. So if you're satisfied, I'm satisfied.
I mean, I'm never satisfied. I always want more money. And I will say that, we just got allocations from the state, and a grant was not renewed from the federal government, and there'll be less money for substance use prevention coming to local entities in this coming year, and then the following year will be significantly reduced. So I do think there are folks who are going to want to do so. Like we receive for all of Cumberland County in 2027, we'll receive $200,000 to do all of substance use prevention. So I think there's a real need. So I would be advocating for us to continue to consider putting more money in the prevention pot. Thank you.
I couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't agree with you more. So I'm glad to have those discussions when you're ready. As a council member. My other question really is just I think just a clearer understanding of. I've not seen this in a grant proposal before. It's just probably I was looking at page 2. One of the things you skimmed over in the slide presentation when you talked about specifically about what was your vision, I guess, around. I'm just trying to frame my question here. When you talk about halfway down page 2 there, the 4 bulleted points. Community conditions can be strengthened in a myriad of ways, including but not limited to, as examples of ways that the funding can be used or applied for. When you talk about the passage and changing of laws, policies, ordinances, resolutions, mandates, help me understand what your thought process was there. What were you?
Yeah, this is the fundamental shift I think you just hit on in terms of, we talk about policy systems and environmental change, or ways in which we are looking towards recognizing that if you think about it, people's behaviors, which is what we often focus on, which is the substance use, right? Is often created based on where they live, work, and play, their opportunities for economic development, for access to schools, for all the things, right? And this one here about the changing of passage of laws, policies, and ordinances and resolutions recognizes that oftentimes the opportunities for addressing substance use start really by the ways in which certain laws and ordinances, et cetera, influence the ways in which the resources flow, the access and community exists, et cetera. And this really, I think, is a lot about the reason why we are offering to have those community, we're calling the capacity building sessions. And I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, either Ben or Brittany, because they've really been digging into trying to figure out how best to support communities and coalitions in making that shift and understanding what this all means. Ben, can I put you on the spot?
You sure can, Heidi, but I'm actually curious to know if what you've already said is resonating, if there are any follow-up questions or points of clarification that want to be shared.
Oh, I think what you said makes sense to me. I'm just trying to get my mind around it. It looks like I could apply to lobby the legislature or a particular governmental entity to change a specific law or ordinance, which maybe is not necessarily a bad thing. It just seems unusual. So, but I think I understand the purpose behind it. Makes sense to me. It just seemed unusual.
I think that this is part of the process of pushing the envelope and changing what we're considering to be public health practice to actually working on fundamentally and sustainably changing conditions, which can certainly require changing local policies or state policies and laws. And I think that one of the things that we can do, and especially in those capacity building sessions, is support the applicants in thinking through the difference between active lobbying versus the types of policy change activities that a lot of nonprofits engage in related to working to build coalitions that can create the 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 power and the community will ultimately to pass policies and laws through education, through the collection of information and communication tools and narrative change strategies and all the sorts of deeper community tools and processes that can lead to policy change. Liz?
Yeah, can I just add one? Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
I'm gonna take Representative Stover and then you, Liz.
Oh, sorry. I can't see you all.
I know.
Sorry.
Thank you for that explanation, Ben. Could you give us, because I'm trying to put this in context. Can you give us an example? A common example that exists today that might be, obviously lobbying would not be it because you would be prohibited from using these funds to use for lobbying, correct?
Yeah, I have a really simple one that, oh, go
Okay.
ahead, Liz.
Well, I was just going to give two really clear ones that are local.
Great.
So I thought that might be helpful. So one example is there's a coalition in South Portland. They're called SOPO Unite, and they are funded by the federal government. And they are, they're a drug-free community coalition, and they've been working for many, many years to support the school district to change some of their policies around how they address substance use in school or in the school context. And so instead of using punitive measures, they now use they have a whole restorative approach for how they address those things. So they've been training staff, they've been working with the, community members to get buy-in for this policy change. They didn't necessarily go and advocate at the school board and say you should pass this policy. They talked about the research on what kind of school policies are best prevent substance use. Another example is like there's a lot of we worked with a police department to help them with their standard operating procedures around how they address first-time substance use among young people. And instead of giving them tickets or, they used, again, a process in which it was their entire standard operating procedures was all young people who have a first-time offense are diverted to a program for substance use. That's an evidence-based program. So those are kind of examples in which it's not about going and advocating for a specific law per se. It's about like building community buy-in for how we do things differently in a way that's there's evidence-based public health research on. Does that make sense? Are those examples that resonate?
Yeah, I think the word policy also gets really, people immediately assume, I mean, we did put in here changing laws, right? As well as policy. So it's understandable that you would go immediately to think about legislative or, sort of an executive change, but it could be people call the little p, right? Instead of the big P. And I know like I live in the state of Vermont, like a big thing was being able to work with towns, work with hospitals, work with businesses so that they would be willing to have Narcan on hand, either through like a vending machine or as part of what they carry along on their EMS time, their EMS runs to make sure that like Narcan was just in every possible place and pocket it could exist, right? And so that is something that prevents overdose. It also is used as a great educational opportunity around the ways in which each and every one of us can hold the space of being advocates in support of people who are using to get to the other side. So there's lots of different ways that this could look.
Thank you. I'm gonna take one more question and then, or maybe two, I don't know, quickly, because I just need to either take a vote or we need to move on to a table this and move on. But running out of time. Todd and Tess, I'll take those two.
I don't want to hold up the process. I just wonder, I don't disagree with what you're saying, and it makes perfect sense, especially influencing policies and things like that. I do worry that this language is pretty broad. And I don't know if the language can be clarified. So we're not bumping up against the accusation, at least of the utilization of these settlement funds that doesn't fit the original criteria. That the restrictions is placed on all the usage of all the funds. So I'm not opposed to what you're saying, it makes sense to me. So I don't know whether that belongs here in the article, or whether that ends up over in the other end of the document where you talk about how the review process goes, what are you gonna use for criteria? Maybe it can be handled on that end. I don't know, but I do have a concern about it.
So helpful to hear that caution. So thank you. Yes, absolutely. We can look at how to make it as clear as possible so that it is not, it's aligned with the allowable and intentional use of the funds, right? And the work that you're hoping to support.
Tess, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm recognizing the time and I don't want to hold things up. Will there be any other future opportunities to talk about the scoring process of this?
So yes, and it depends, right? So we have as much time as you need, so we're on your calendar. But the reason we put in here right now, sort of the ways in which where is it over here? Right? The review, we want to do it at a high level what the application review process and scoring criteria will be, because it helps applicants understand what they're writing to and what's expected of them to see if it fits, if what they want to do fits or doesn't fit with this funding opportunity. So if there's something at this high level that we should fix, we should definitely do that before it hits the streets, as it were. In terms of the review process, who will be included and do they have the right questions that they're looking at? There's still a little bit of, there's room to do that. And we can certainly, we're on your calendar. We had worked backwards, wanting to make sure that the decisions were made before this iteration of the council changes, which is, so when we worked backwards, making sure that like we could deliver to you the set of recommended entities to fund would be in early October. Up through, November 18th being the last point. So we have room if we don't hit the streets as fast also.
So we are sort of on a time crunch because as a full council, we only meet once a month. Tess, did you?
Yeah, my question, and this sounds like it can wait for another time, is really around making sure that the people that are selected to be scorers of these applications, that there's a process for conflict of interest, that it's
Oh, yeah.
well-rounded, broad array, and if it will have input on that at a later date. But it
Yes.
doesn't have to happen then.
Yeah,
Sounds
the
good.
council will have input into who the scores are and actually conflict of interest and all that. So what I need from the council today is, and Chester reminded me, I don't really need a vote, but I need a consensus. If I don't have a consensus, I will take a vote. But I need a consensus saying that with the suggestions of today, that we move forward with this RFP and follow the timeline that has been suggested with this presentation today. So if we're all in favor of that, this consensus to move forward, we will. If there's any consent, otherwise, I will take a vote, but I'm looking for a consensus.
Maybe the question is there anybody who doesn't agree?
That is true. I'm looking for those people. But I think a bad idea to move forward.
I think as long as I understand that. That you're gonna take a look at that concern about, just clarifying that section I was talking about, I'm all good.
Mhm. Yep. Yep, the three things that I've taken away is looking at the use of the language of legislation and advocacy, being clear that we're looking for existing coalition and it doesn't have to be countywide, and adding a criteria for the implementation that has to do with capacity and impact. Those are the three large scale changes that we're going to make based on what I heard.
Maybe
Right,
just on the, sorry, Todd, go ahead.
No, go ahead, man.
I was just gonna say on the adding the implementation, I would say it doesn't necessarily have to just be adding. It might be just like reducing the focus. The others may just reduce and change.
Yes.
But ultimately addressing those concerns that are specific to implementation.
Will do.
Okay, so if we have a consensus, we're gonna move forward with the suggestions, including the piece where looking at who will be scoring these grants and getting council approval. Other than that, we're gonna move forward with the timetable that's presented. And I really do appreciate and thank you, the council does, all the work that you put into this, and listening to all 15 voices isn't always easy, so thank you very much. All right.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for all the most helpful feedback.
Thank you. Right, there's nothing further on that.
Okay.
Thank you. And we can
Well,
look, giving them more money at some point, not today. Thank you. Just not today.
We don't have much time.
Thank you, Heidi and Ben.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
All right, so we're going to go to the chairperson's report. Brendan is not here today, and there was two things I said I would briefly bring up, but he's not here, so I'm not gonna take any questions, because some of them are legal questions. You all received in the mail that we had a request, a phone request for some information in regards to our grant writing process and some other information. And Brendan is working on that request and moving it forward and gathering all the information necessary for that. And if you have any questions in regards to that, I would filter them to our lawyer, through Brendan. And we will move forward with that. Also, in the past.
No, just before you move on, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I am gonna move on from forward to one other thing. If you wanna set the other.
Okay, well, we'll stick with the FOA request. One thing Brendan wanted everyone to make sure they knew was just the staff time that was gonna be involved. AG's office got it, not us. And I'm on the MIRAC board, so I'm not participating in it, so just Elizabeth is doing that. And for everyone to know the different relationships that are in this. We have a staff member from that organization on the council. Another board member for that organization on the council. it's all been, like, all of the conflict of interest and everything that needs to be done has been done, but just so people know, there are relationships in the big, small town of Maine in play here.
And then we have been aware from the landlord that those conflicts were there. And worked within our own policy in regards to that. But it went through the AG's office, so we're gonna let them handle that and they will report back after all of the information has been sent along. Just wanted to make sure you're informed. And again, I can't answer those questions. A lot of them are legal and Brendan isn't here today to answer those. So the second thing from Brendan is that recently there was a court decision in regards to public comment in public meetings. Here it actually came about here in Augusta. And so after reviewing their decision, the court's decision, he's decided we should probably make a few changes in our policy in regard to public comment. So he's gonna bring those suggestions to the governance committee. The governance committee will review any changes, and then they will bring the new draft for voting back to the full council for vote. But I just wanted you to know those two things. Never know. All right, I'm here to report on the executive committee that met on July 29th. To review the contract with the executive director for the council. We went into executive session as you voted in the April meeting. We had permission to go into executive session to discuss that contract. Chastity did join us for part of that meeting, so she could discuss with us any changes she saw in the contract. And just in general, tell us how that was going and any suggestions she had. And we discussed a variety of things in regard to the contract. We discussed the length of contract, the compensation for the contract. We discussed the in exhibit A of the contract is her job description, and that was discussed in that. Okay, and so we came up with our recommendations. And our recommendations are as follows. Is that the contract be extended to 2 years. And the reason for that extension for 2 years is it holds more consistency. That every year we're not looking at this contract every year. It gives the board some consistency that we know we have someone for 2 years, as well as it just is more efficient. We also looked at the compensation of that contract, and we agreed that that we're recommending a 5% increase with the understanding that after review of that first year in the contract, in that second year, she can get up to a 6% increase in that second year. In exhibit A, which is the job description, we want to add that the executive director serves as the clerk for the council, as well as putting in a line that the executive director can sign invoices for the expenses of the council. Then we want to change under the job description under strategies and communication that 30% of her time be spent with that, and under grants and administration, it would go to 30%. Last but not least, the change that's suggested is under strategy and communication, it would say the lead vendor relationship supervises collaborative tasks and manages all contracts held by the council, including the MRC coordinator, grant management, and all other contracts to be determined by the council. That line is in there, but it's stating a little bit more clearly that the executive director really is the person who is coordinating the contracts, the remainder of the contracts for the council. That the council isn't micromanaging every contract that comes in, that our executive director is the person that really manages those contracts, brings any concerns or additions back to the council. It's the way it's done in most organizations, and really want to tighten up that language. Those are the recommendations of the executive committee.
a clarifying question. Are you looking for a vote?
I am gonna ask for a vote that we
So
accept the
just
contract.
I just, so 5% this year, up to 6% next year.
Yes. Yes.
I was not present at the executive committee meeting. I had a conflict, so I wasn't there to know this. Is that 5% consistent with any COLAs? Or have we compared it to other salaries? That's all that I've checked out.
Yeah, that was part of the discussion in that we want to be able to be competitive. We certainly don't want to underpay or overpay an executive director. And so we believe that when we looked at the range that we had in the job description, that this fit within the range and competitively statewide, we believe that this salary matches or this contract matches what we'd see in Maine communities. So I'm looking for a vote that we extend the executive director's contract to Chastity for 2 years, and that we make the following changes. And Betsy, I have it all written for you. That we
Bless you.
make the following changes in the contract and accept the contract. Maggie?
Thanks. I'm not sure if, like, since the other questions were asked, I think this is the right timing, but tell me if I'm wrong to ask this after the motion for a vote is. Roughly, like, I'm very comfortable moving this forward as long as all the parties are comfortable. But I am a little confused because I thought at the last meeting we had said that we would extend the contract to October. And then in October, we were going to go and have a better process. So what I've been working on via the governance committee and discussions with Brendan was clarifying that process for some of this with the idea that it would be able to be in place for when we get to the point in closer to the fall when we would need to go through this process. So can you catch me up on kind of, did I misunderstand all of that?
So we decided to extend her contract only because it went into the blackout period. That her contract technically had expired and that we agreed that the executive committee would meet and to renew her contract. Part of the conversation, but it won't be part of this agenda. Part of what we talked about in executive committee is within the next 6 months, there will be a process in evaluating contracts that will be developed by the drafted by the executive committee or members and brought to the council. So we will be looking at how we evaluate our contracts. But this is just in place. Her contract technically expired in July. And we just extended it because if we didn't, it would have fallen within the blackout period and we wouldn't be able to pay her or anybody. So what we did was it was according to what the council decided, the executive committee met. They went about this, and one of the recommendations out of it will be within the next 6 months, we come up with a way to appropriately evaluate our contracts.
Okay, great. I have, like, let's in the governance committee we can discuss more on that front. And thanks for the update.
Yeah. Fine.
I'd make a motion that we accept the recommendations of the executive committee as explained by our chair. I think that will, with regard to the executive director's contract.
If we resign, yes, thank you.
I second that.
And it's been seconded.
By whom?
Seconded by Holly Stover.
Thank you.
I know you can't see me. I raised my.
In the court. Do we have any other questions before we take?
Can you just clarify Maggie's question, kind of the timeline? I'm foggy. And like, what's the time period?
So I was under the impression this time period will be, her contract will now be, well, we can't do anything because it's the blackout period, right?
Right.
So until the end of the blackout period, the new contract can't take effect. So that means this contract will take in effect
July 1 to 10/1. Or the new contract.
the new contract.
10/1.
This will start 10/1.
So 10-1 for 2 years.
Yes. Any other questions? I hate the blackout period, trust me, crazy. If there's no other questions, will you take the roll, please?
Yeah, sorry, it was Todd and Ollie.
Yes.
Yes.
Amber Pulsifer. Yeah, Betsy Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Deb Poulin,
Yes.
Holly Stover,
Yes.
Jamar Williams,
Yes.
Joe Everett,
Yes.
Liz Blackwell Moore. She might not be that.
She said she had to step away.
Meg McLaughlin.
Maggie?
I said yes, but my audio came on.
Okay, all of a sudden you just disappeared with just on the M. Thank you.
Oh, Melissa Hackett,
Yes.
Pat Kimball,
Yes.
Paul Vinsel,
Yes.
Tess Parks,
Yes.
Todd Brackett.
Yes.
Motion carries with one absent.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. And Chastity, thank you for the work. Thank you, too. Sorry. The second piece that we talked briefly about, not an executive session, but in at the meeting executive committee, was that we were also gonna look at the coordinator's contract and look to see the possibility of also making that a 2-year. And again, looking at the process of how we evaluate it. So in the next 6 months, we will do, again, look at that process. And again, look to see if that contract should also be extended to 2 years. So I think that was it. You will see the minutes of that meeting. We apologize, we had some internet problems here and there, but those minutes will be out of that executive committee soon.
The only time ever no staff were allowed to be part of it. So, that was good.
Yeah, it was in and out, in and out, in and out, and it's, we got derailed, so I appreciate all your time. If there's no other questions.
Just to clarify, and I think you all understand, but for members of the public, you will see the executive committee, you will not see the executive session. So there's like, I think 15 minutes at the beginning, and then the bulk of the meeting is just a blank screen that says we are in executive session. So just to clarify for you all, it's gonna be a long recording, but there's not gonna be a lot of content there, but just wanted to clarify that what Pat discussed about us not being in that meeting is not going to be made available to everyone who's out with that. That is part of the vote was for that to be public. Yeah.
Vote will be public information. Thank you, Elizabeth, for the clarification. The only other thing that I have to report as a chair is that I know things move fast. And one of the hardest things for Chastity to do is keep track of council business and 15 people. And I know that we all get requests here and there from people asking us questions. I would ask it all as possible when you have concerns about the council and council business, that you make sure that that Chastity's included in those discussions and that she's aware that those happen that way, because she really is, the executive director is that hub of the wheel. It's where all the information sits, it's where all that goes. And so when we get questions or when we have questions, make sure that we direct them to Chastity, and then she can make sure that you get the information you needed, and we're all aware of it. I just wanted to remind people that and appreciate good communications. All right, committee reports. It's Deb. Finance is up first. Deb, you up there?
I am here, and I'm going to do this a little bit different than I usually do because we've talked and talked and talked, and I think at this point it's time to make motions. So I would like to share the draft operating schedule. I don't know if I can share my screen or not. What I would like to do, and you can talk me through the process, is review the draft operating schedule and then make a motion for the council to adopt it. That doesn't mean that you can't offer feedback. I can adjust it, and otherwise it's been presented in the finance committee. It's been presented in the program and grants committee. I think it was shared very briefly with the large council. And then Chastity and I had an opportunity to meet with Summer out of the OAG's office. No, I'm sorry, the AG's office, because some of the timing of the schedule is going to be related to the blackout period that the AG's office has in terms of being able to process contracts, encumbrances, and otherwise. So I will share and walk you through this, and then I would like to make a motion for the council to adopt. And I'm open to any questions, comments, or concerns. And for all of my fellow finance committee members and guests and otherwise, I have a really bad cold. So if I forget something or get a little hazy, please jump in and correct me. We've all been working on this together. Okay, I think you are seeing the operating schedule, and I can make it bigger. Another piece of this that I wanted to talk about is because it relates to this operating schedule, and then I'll walk you through it. We, as the MRC, had discussed whether or not we wanted to align our contracts with the state fiscal year, and there was a lot of support for doing that, and it's something that we do at the department on a regular basis. The AG's office actually would prefer we don't do that, and said that it is easier to process contracts and payments and otherwise in a little bit of a scattered fashion. When we actually adopt an operating schedule, I'm not sure. At some point, the contracts are going to all align anyway. And based on the blackout period, it naturally aligns with the fiscal year. So over the course of a couple of cycles, I think we'll get there. But this is what I propose for an operating schedule that January and February, and this is a little fluid. This is mostly as a guide, not a rigid rule. January and February would be budget preparation and allocation planning. And that's the next motion that I'll be forwarding, which is our operating budget. But so January and February, the council would really be planning the budget, thinking about with the money that they have available to allocate to ongoing project grants, new grants, and otherwise, we would be determining what those amounts are. We also had talked about across the council accepting off-cycle requests, and I think that it makes sense to accept off-cycle requests during that time, and I'll make more comments on that. March and April is prepare and release RFPs. The blackout period, according to Summer in the AG's office, is actually just May and June. So that gives us a lot more time. And I would suggest, since we can't do anything with contracting during that time, that would be a good time to be scoring the proposals, because we can't do anything related to contracting and encumbrance, but we can figure out who will be awarded with contracts. July and August would be the contract development and encumbrance. September and October is really stabilizing. And then November and December is when the council would want to look at reviewing their annual spending over the past year and begin preparation for the new award cycles, and also to look at off-cycle requests. Couple of notes, and then I'm going to stop talking. If we accept off-cycle requests and or emergency funding, which is another topic separate than off-cycle requests that has been circulated and has a lot of support, from a finance perspective, we still need to set a threshold for budgeting purposes that gets into the allocation. How much money do we want to allocate to any off-cycle requests or emergency funding? Secondly, in terms of blackout periods, off-cycle requests, emergency funding, and otherwise, all of that will change if we determine as a council that we want to pay a third-party fiduciary agent, which is another conversation we have had. That changes the entire landscape. I don't know if we want to vote on that today or not. I think I've got a lot to share with you, so I might want to table that until next time, but that's up to you. And then the only reason we would be limiting off-cycle requests and emergency funding. And emergency funding, it's kind of its own thing because the name emergency in and of itself speaks volumes. But for off-cycle requests, the reason we would limit those timeframes is twofold. One, it takes a lot of resource because we do still have to vet, we do still have to budget, we do still have to go through the contracting process. And otherwise, if we don't limit when we take off-cycle requests, then we're just going to be constantly churning RFPs and contracts and awards. And if that's the direction the council wants to go in, that's fine. But it's just it's gonna take a lot of time and resource. And I don't think that we have the infrastructure to support that, which is why I'm making that suggestion. But that is, so my motion is for the council to look at this operating schedule, suggest changes or discuss them in a limited time period because we don't have a lot of time, and then a motion to adopt an operating schedule so that we can A, stay organized ourselves, and B, give our community members a sense of when to anticipate the opening up for proposals.
Questions for Deb or a motion made?
Deb, this is Paul. I don't see a space in the operating schedule for emergency funding requests. Would those be during the off-cycle requests?
I initially had emergency funding in, and then I took it out and grappled with it. Paul, I'm glad you raised it. I figured somebody would, because if it's an emergency request, that to me is different than off-cycle. Off-cycle isn't closing doors. Off-cycle is we have a need, we have an expedited need, but it doesn't mean we're not going to meet payroll or we're going to close our doors. Whereas emergency to me is almost like we're not going to meet payroll, we can't pay our lights. It's different. So I almost think that needs to be handled. We need to allocate budget for it, but I think they need to be handled a little bit differently.
That would be more on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, I think so. I think the work of the Recovery Council, my recommendation is to have some sort of guideline for what we would consider emergency versus off-cycle. So we want to operationally define those two variables, but I just see it different. I don't see planning for that other than the allocation piece, but I am open to other opinions for sure.
So I would just say, Deb, and team, that the program grants committee is like mulling this over. So I think all of this, we'll be back next month with sort of a oversight, and Deb, I could get with you. We could talk about the money, but I don't think we're ready to talk about the process.
Yeah.
And I think Chastity at the last meeting mentioned, like, we don't know that we have the capacity to do emergency requests all the time. Like you said, it's not easy getting the money out the door. So this might be it. We may have to shove off. And I think we're using this term off-cycle requests sort of to encompass everything. But I don't know that we can get those, much to my chagrin, but it's just, that's our reality. And then we're also, Maggie put together, I think y'all have seen her scope of work to potentially look at getting an external vendor who might be able to help us with that.
Thank you.
Because even if you came to us with an emergency, if it truly is an emergency, we can't be the source of that because we can't get our money out there fast enough. Time.
Yeah, thanks for the work on the schedule. I like this. I like the schedule. I still get confused over emergency, off-cycle, and my pet peeve, which is micro, right? Grants. So I don't see any spot for that in the schedule. So I maybe that's coming up with more discussions. I wasn't able to make the last programs or finance committee meetings, so I don't want to rehash those because I've been trying to get caught up. I know there's been some work. I was looking at the stuff in the last meeting, but
so
I would be more comfortable with a clearer schedule, I guess is all I'm saying.
So this is the basis of what we know. The unknown is what we're going, there's a few things that are unknown, and Joe brought that to attention, and what do we do with emergency funds or these small funds? Those will be decided if we're developing policy. What Deb is proposing today is that this is really a broad look at how we do our business right now with the known. We do have some outliers out there that we don't know, emergency funding or the small grant funding. But this is what we know, and this is a start to say, this is gonna be our schedule for now. And we can, again, it's not written in stone. It's there to be changed as we develop policy and procedures to change that. I hope that clarifies Todd a little bit, but no one's, you know, and again, there's a lot of decisions to be made around money and how we distribute it, but this just gives us a basis. But basically what we know today.
That's right, Pat. And I mean, in a way, I almost wonder if I shouldn't have even included off-cycle requests, because we're doing them, but we don't officially do them in any sort of a formalized way. And just thinking about where we are today, we're in May, and May is part of the blackout period. Looking at this schedule, in an ideal world, we would already be scoring RFPs or proposals, and we don't even have them yet. So it's going to take us a little bit of time to catch up to this schedule, but that's why we need a schedule so that we actually are organized in our operations. And it doesn't have to be this one. I just wanted to, we need one.
So I'm looking for a motion.
So can I just, I'm taking that off, and to your point, Todd, just, if we just take off the off cycle, I think the schedule is, my opinion, is perfect, but, because we haven't really mulled over. Like, we do know those months are when we have capacity, but that might not line up with the reality, but those are months in the schedule, so if we could just remove that, it might then get the schedule going, and then we can bring it back.
So you're making a motion that you accept Deb's proposal with the elimination of that one line.
Yes, making the motion that Pat just said.
Thank you.
I have removed the line.
Tex.
Thank you, Deb. I really appreciate you. I know you spent a lot of time working on this. That does not go unnoticed. I really like that we're moving towards an organized track. From a logistics standpoint, how long do you think it would take for us where we could end up on that schedule? Because there is going to be a turnover where there will be a new council. And I just want to make sure that we're not setting up confusion. Is this realistic? How long will it take for us to end up on the schedule?
I think you're gonna have to do it sooner than you think, Tess, because our grants that wrote that we're currently paying out are almost 2 years old. So that may be more realistic than we think. Some of us will be here for that, others won't. But I think it's more realistic than we'd like to think. We look at it as sort of, for me, a little scary. But if we look at our grants and where they are, a lot of them are beginning to expire. And so we're gonna have to look at that new grant proposal process.
I would just say, looking at the schedule, we're in May right now, we're hitting mid-May. I had March to April for preparing and releasing RFPs. So in that regard, we're only a couple months behind. And then we're about 3 months behind-ish, maybe 4, but around the budget. But that's my next motion, is to present you with a budget that and a motion to approve as a full council an operating budget, so we know what we're working with, which positions us really well to start issuing RFPs sooner rather than later. So I think, we're really talking about catching up by about 90-ish days, give or take. And we can do it. We can do it. We just have to be disciplined.
I have a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second?
Yes, you do.
Paul will second.
Okay.
And discussion, Todd.
So. I'm to Tessa's point, I'm feeling the pressure, right? And I really appreciate the work, Deb, I really do, and I like the time I don't like taking anything off the schedule. I think we should be adding things to the schedule. And I would really like to get some things done before I can't. That's just me. I can't speak for the rest of the council, but my time is short. Just a few meetings and I'm afraid it'll be Thanksgiving before we know it. I don't wanna think about it, cause Fourth of July is not here yet, but I'm flies, but. So I would rather see a schedule, knowing that it's a work in progress, understanding that it's a work in progress, that. That includes off-cycle emergency and the idea of the micro. Grant, I'm just, cause one thing I think those are all goals that we share. Although we haven't formally adopted any of those. I've not heard a lot of pushback on those other than the details which need to be worked out, so. I just feel like we're just putting off the inevitable and it slows us down. We'll have to revisit it maybe in June, or if not, then July, and then we gotta get an RFP out, and then. Well, I'll never see it. Maybe I'll read about it, but as it's been pointed out, it will be the responsibility of the next council, who may have a completely different direction, which is fine. But that's just me. I just think it's time to. Let's just put these things down that we want to get done. And understanding that it's a work in progress and we can move it forward. So I'm not sure I support the motion. Not because I want to hold up the process, not that that'll make any difference at the end of the day. It's up to the council, but I just let's get some stuff done. I know we're on the way, but I mean, I would feel better if
So let's start
we're
with
gonna get this
the
stuff done.
calendar. So there's a motion on the floor to accept what Deb has presented with the elimination of that line. And that's been seconded. So we need a vote on that motion, or the motion has to be taken back.
Withdrawn.
Withdrawn, thank you.
Withdrawn.
Thank you. Withdrawn, or we're gonna move forward with the vote.
And I hear you, and I'm prepared to modify or to change the motion to put the off cycle back on.
Okay.
Because I personally believe that's our reality today, that we can only do it in those 2 months.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of with you, Todd, that we need to talk about it. And I also see this as a moving target. To your question, Tess, we're not gonna, the schedule doesn't line up with where we're at yet. So I think there is some catch up. But I think that can we just talk about the off cycle, to your point, Todd, what do we want to sort of name that today, and knowing that that's our time, that's our window today, which doesn't mean it can't be changed.
So there's a motion to remove the motion. That's been removed.
You have to ask if the second is willing to also withdraw his
Is the
second.
second willing to remove that?
Yes.
Okay, and so you made another motion that we leave it exactly the way Deb had originally proposed it. And Paul, do you second that?
Yes, but I wanna know, you said something additional and I didn't quite understand.
So I'm just saying to what Todd said, I agree that we should be getting things written down. So if that's what we've talked about, that's really the capacity we have. It's 4 months of the 12 months. That we can do off-cycle funding, which we will come back next month with a comprehensive understanding, all the types of funding that we've identified that are in Maggie's draft scope of work document. But I'm just saying, if we want to really nail down the schedule, and Chastity, feel free to weigh in, is that the months that we can do this work realistically? So I'm just trying to be realistic about what.
Probably, I don't know that. We can get on the schedule as soon as the public is gonna expect us to, once this is accepted. Cause the prevention stuff that we just talked about. We may not be officially doing the RFP ourselves, but there'll still be the scoring component, we'll still be doing the contracting, so. I think we could be a while to be on the schedule we want. So I think we need to be very clear about that this is what we want, it doesn't mean we're gonna have an RFP. Or wide open RFP on this timeline.
So it's like a budget, it's a draft. Paul, are you seconding that?
What?
Discussion.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that I would. I just, Deb, would it be okay, in a bullet underneath there, if you put. Off cycle on there, that off cycle, is a work in progress and it may include emergency and micro discussions as well. I just don't want them to get lost. I really love the schedule. I like it. Makes perfect sense, so we have it.
So that's just, it doesn't change your schedule, just underneath suggestions, it goes under there. And I'm gonna call a vote soon, or we're gonna call the table it, because we've got other business, Tess.
I'm sorry, Pat.
That's
I'm
okay.
doing this a little bit. I mean, is there a world where we could commit as a group to within a month or maybe even 2 months of we roll our sleeves up and finalize off-cycle, emergency, whatever that looks like, even if that means putting out micro, all three, various different shapes to a third party vendor and having that work.
But that's a whole other discussion, and we can put that on a meeting, but remember, Tess, and then I'll take Maggie's question. And then if it goes on further, we're gonna have to table it, we have other business. The problem arises is that in a normal world, I don't know what word normal, probably not a word. In other places, you could say, we're gonna keep meeting until this happens. We have to give a 14-day notice every time we meet. So even if we say, oh, we're almost done, let's meet next week for an hour. We don't have that opportunity to do it. I do agree that we have to move things faster and really cement things down, and we've been talking about this off-cycle thing for a year now. Moving it forward makes absolute sense, but just remember that we just can't meet, you have to give this 2-week notice thing to everything. So that hinders us a little in that process, but we certainly can put on the agenda for next month that we vote and seriously look at, which puts a lot of work onto programs and grants to be able to get the draft to us to be able to vote at the June meeting. We can do that. Maggie, I'll take a question and then we either go for it or we vote to table this.
Thanks. I'm a little confused at which motion we're at, with it in or with it out, but I think the whole principle is that we don't need it in because it will be a third party administering it. And so they can do it all year long. They don't have the same contract limitations to a certain extent.
If we go that way, yes. What we're asking right now is to develop a schedule on the restraints that we have. If we went with a third party vendor, they don't have that, although we have it, that we can't give the third party vendor money unless it's in a cycle. We can't give a third party vendor any money during the blackout period. But yes, you're right, Maggie, if we went with a third party vendor to do it, they would not have blackout periods.
I'm just afraid, Maggie, that if we leave it out, that document is gonna be an MRC document. And what you say is very true. I don't disagree with anything you said, but how will the public know that, that this is part of our priority, that it's on our schedule, that we're gonna get this done, even though it's gonna be handled by a third party, where does it go? So I know it'll be advertised later and stuff, but I just think that's just me.
Okay, if there's no other questions, I'm gonna go for a vote. Jesse's gone, I'll do this. Here we go. Amber, I don't believe is here.
No.
Okay.
We're voting.
Okay, go for it, Elizabeth.
Betsy?
Yes.
No.
Can I just clarify the motion? Right, we're voting on.
The motion
leaving
says,
the
the second motion that Joe had, which leaves Deb's original document, which includes the non-cycle funding on it. And with a suggestion on below that this includes emergency funding and short-term funding under the suggestion part. And Paul seconded, that's what you're voting on. Go ahead.
Betsy?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Paul? Yes. Jamar?
Yes.
Chip?
Yeah.
Liz?
Yes.
Maggie?
Yes.
Melissa?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
That's yes.
Yes.
Thank you all. And that motion carries. Deb, Continue your report.
Okay, the
Thank you.
next one is a motion to approve an operating budget. I'm going to share my screen again. This may have to go to the next meeting, but I hope it doesn't because we've talked about it a few times in the finance committee and in the larger committee. I will walk you through this quickly. I was going to update it for the month of May, but I did it in March. It's all formulaic, but I did it in March and I can update it pretty easily. What I really want to focus on is the allocation, not anything much more. Let me just give you a quick heads up. Again, this is as of March 5th. We had a beginning balance as of January 31st. We had our beginning balance of essentially $30 million. We had at that time obligated funds, meaning encumbered funds obligated to contracts of $10,385,000. We had the PCG contract management at $313,000. So what you're seeing at the top of this budget is really operating. It's what we're doing. This is the master look at our budget. Then you go down to staff salaries. I built in a 10% increase because we hadn't talked about anything at this point in time other than that there would be an increase. So that will have to be adjusted. Travel for the staff for the conference, miscellaneous costs related to staff. Again, these smaller buckets, salary increase, travel, and miscellaneous is all related to our staff. I did, Todd and everyone, build in $200,000 for a contracted third-party fiduciary should we decide to go that route. I don't have any realistic idea of what that contract would cost. So I put a placeholder in. That's a give or take. As we know with any budget, it's our best estimate. It's not going to be carved in stone per se when you get to some of these pieces, like the unknown around that, but I did build it in. I built in the school set aside and I built in our average stay cap expenses over the amount of time that I had available to me. So our expense total just from the top with the staff and all of the things I talked about was just over 12 million, but that also does include our contracted encumbrances, which left us about 19 million to work with. What I want us to focus on, and like I said, I can adjust all of this, even with the adjustments, it will be ballpark that figure. So I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that. For allocated funds, this is what I really want us to vote on. This is what we would do, or what I'm proposing we would do on an annual basis in that January, February timeframe, is look at what our balance is, and then look at what we as a council want to allocate out to our communities, our constituents, our vendors, and otherwise. So I plugged some numbers in, and then I compared it to what Ben Mann, the former treasurer, had, and it came up very, very, very close within dollars for an ending balance. And then I have a comment on that as well. So this is what I plugged in. This is what I want to discuss because these are, I'm not married to these numbers at all. I just needed to put something down to give you something to respond to. So I had allocated funds for miscellaneous MRC operations, such as the facilitator, Carol Kelly, I don't know, just miscellaneous items. I had $6,000. That might be too much. It might be too little. Allocated funds to obligate to new grant awards. So essentially we put the RFP out, proposals come in. These are new projects that we haven't funded before. I put 6 million. I did the same thing for existing funded programs seeking sustainability funds. I put 6 million. And then for both emergency funding requests and off-cycle requests, I gave them each 400,000. So that would be allocating for this year a total of $12,806, which would leave us an ending balance of $6,266,207. If that is giving you pause, that's okay. It gave me pause because then what does that mean for our subsequent outlier years? And one area that Brendan is lovely at reminding me and everybody else at the Finance Committee is we have more opioid settlement funds coming in. And so that number will actually increase as the smaller settlements come in. We have not, in the royal we, as Brendan and I have not yet determined the best way to estimate that out, but it's something that we're working on. And we should start to have a better sense of that. But the overall total, I think once the other litigating parties factor in, might be around 12 to 15 million ish, give or take. So that balance will increase again. We just don't have it right this second. So what I'm looking for from the council is to take a look at this proposed operating budget, spend a few minutes with it, tell me if I'm off by too much, what's comfortable, what's not comfortable, and I would really like to have a vote on it. And the reason for that is because we will at some point run a risk of over obligating ourselves if we don't know what our guardrails are. And I would not really want to see the MRC promise money only to realize that we've over obligated. So having some guardrails around our budget is really important when we're awarding contracts and funding for just really amazing projects.
Thanks for that. Todd?
Yeah, just to clarify, the 6 million that you have to obligate to new grant awards. And the allocation funds to obligate the renewals, that 6 million. And those are for the calendar year we're in now, is that what you envision those, or? Yeah, and so, and does that 6 million include the 1.9 that we just talked about for
the
prevention, or is that already in obligated funds up above? Or did you consider that? I'm just trying to get a sense for what that 6 million means. And
yeah, everything that I factored in came from this grand total of 19 million after I took out obligated funds and the obligated fund and the staff. But the obligated funds that I used came from the contracts that we have encumbered.
okay.
Yeah. So if Liz does not yet have encumbered contracts, then no. So I would need to update that. Yep.
Other questions?
Deb, that the amount for those contracts are not encumbered, but they are on that master that you get the information from.
Okay.
So the prevention's included in that number, the one above. Encumbered.
Yes.
Okay, it's not included, it's not needed for the numbers below. That are available ones that she put. I can't see the word, so I can't. See the 2.6 ones. 6 million, prevention isn't in there, it's in the encumbered above, is that what you're saying?
Right.
Okay.
Obligated, maybe encumbered is the wrong word, obligated funds.
Questions?
I was just making a.
You can, but.
You guys really missed me, didn't you, when I was here?
Yes, you missed you.
By the way,
Probably most of them.
Listen, just thinking of the realities that we've been reminded by Chastity and Tess so eloquently about the timeframes and how long it will take us to get some of these done. I like the budget. I like the way I just wonder if we could tweak or talk about tweaking those allocated funds a little bit. Because I wonder if 400 is enough for emergency and off cycle. In each of those, I think specifically of the public comment letter we got today, we've had more and more of those that may or may not be emergent based on other shortfalls in funding. And I wonder if it's realistic for us to be able to plan for $6 million in newer grants Other than the ones that we've already planned for prevention, right? That's a work in progress. So if they don't already show up, then they'll show up there. I'm just wondering if we'll realistically be able to get that done before December. And get those RFPs out and get, so without changing the bottom line, I think is what I'm suggesting, Deb.
Yep.
Could we consider moving some, not understanding that we can probably revisit it anytime.
It's a
right?
budget.
It's a work in
It is a
progress.
budget.
It can be revisited. That's just a thought, and maybe we don't need to do it now. Maybe that could be done later. That's just where my mind's going.
Yeah, we can absolutely move those figures around. I mean, really what we're looking at and what I had proposed is $12,806,000 essentially to work with across those categories. We can shift that any way we want to shift that. I think maybe the question then becomes, is 12,806 too much, too little? Are we comfortable with that figure? It's right in line with what Ben had projected out, but that doesn't mean that that's still the right thing for the council. I'm asking you to tell me how you'd like to see the numbers, and I'll make the changes.
And Deb, I'm assuming when we look at the ending balance of I can't read the numbers, but it's like 6 million and change. Having that money when you carry it over helps us in the gap years, where if you remember Ben's chart, there's years where we have less money. And so if we can't just look at it like, oh my God, we have 6 million just sitting there, it should go out. What we also need to look at is that there are years where we're not getting, and that 6 million will fill in those gap years. So we're able to continue to have grants and pass money forward. Okay, question.
Yeah, you don't want to have a zero balance. You want to make sure that you have something for all of the things that you said, Pat, and even though money is coming in, we're also generating revenue, which helps our communities through interest. But in addition to that, not yet having a good sense of how the smaller settlements are coming in and how we've obligated funds so far, I would be concerned about dropping that balance too much lower than that.
Oh, you had a question?
My only question with an ending balance, regardless of what it is, and you're gonna do adjustments for the date, do those carry forward? They don't lapse, right?
They don't lapse.
We just carry forward.
No one can touch our money.
I can't touch this.
Can't touch this. Just Todd, did you have another question?
Just a quick question, Deb. I assume interest is included in the beginning balance?
Yeah. Yeah.
Questions?
So just to be clear, Deb, like the 12 grant or the 12 million is fluid.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like because I'm gonna go back to the original. The Tess and Todd proposals are kind of one time. They're not recurring, right?
What do you mean?
So like someone's gonna be able to apply for, this money and it's not a recurring, so it's very predictable.
Yeah.
Like we have we got 500 million or 500,000 versus the multiple year awards.
What I do think is, what I hope is reoccurring, is that those types of funds will be available each year.
Yeah.
Maybe not to the same applicant, obviously, but yeah. Great.
I agree with that too.
Any questions? If not, I'll hear a motion to accept Deb's proposed budget.
So moved.
The moved by Holly, do I hear a second?
I'd second it if the motion is to, accept that 12.
To the motion.
That $12 million figure. Understanding that it's flexible. We'll be able to move that.
Oh, it's a budget.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're voting on a budget. So are you seconding it?
I'm used to government budget. Government budgets should be changed, but it's not easy to change it. If you don't think so, just ask the legislature. It takes them a while.
We don't have a line item budget, so.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Paul, do you have a question?
No.
Okay, if there's no other question, will you call the roll, please? And Deb, thank you very much for the
Yeah,
work.
thank you.
Yeah, good work.
Let's call the roll first and see what happens.
Betsy,
Betsy,
I mean,
We're voting.
Yay or nay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Deb,
Yes.
Holly,
Yes.
Mar,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Maggie,
Yes.
Melissa,
Yes.
Pat,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Tess,
Yes.
Todd.
Yes.
Except if that passes.
It passed, thank you very much, and that is your first official budget of Maine Recovery Council. I thank you very much for your patience with it. All right, moving forward, any other business, Deb, that you have? Thank you, Finance Committee is done. I will remind people of time as we move on to governance, all time, remember.
Yes, I can be quick on this. On the first, so we met on April 24.
It's my 55th wedding anniversary.
Oh, there.
Congratulations.
We talked about reviewing personnel contracts, and Maggie's already spoken of that. She's working on that with Ben for something that we can give to the executive committee that they can use to approve for reviewing personnel contracts. So that's a work in progress. For orientation, we did a lot of work on that. And Elizabeth, are you able to put that up for me? Thanks. We kind of combined some of the subjects. So it doesn't look like Brendan is doing the whole thing. He still is, but it's all combined into one product.
One big happy face.
All right, so first subject would be the history of the opioid overdose crisis. And that would be presented by myself and Tess. From a medical standpoint, and then from a community, how the community was affected. And then the number two, we put together a bunch of things, the history of the settlements, the litigating parties, remember the MOU, the structure for the funds, time span of the settlements and how the funds come in, and how they're distributed in Maine between the MRC, the AG's office, and the municipalities. We gave that to Brendan, which looks like a lot, but actually each of those things is pretty quick. We didn't think that that was a lot. The structure of the MRC, including officers, committees, staff members, we gave that to Pat because she has the best knowledge of that, and she accepted that. Relationship between the AG's office and MRC, that would be Chastity. Again, that would be probably pretty quick. FOA, we gave that to Brendan, but I stress that this is not a FOA training, it's just kind of describing FOA, and then we have to follow that. Talk to Chastity, we'll talk about the 4 pillars of abatement. And then Chastity's going to talk about how we've distributed funds so far. What is the history of our funds so far? This would not be in one setting. What we plan to do is to do this over 2 to 3 sessions. And we would start in September of this year, right? September?
But we can't start in September because the new members won't be in until December.
No. We're actually starting in August. We're going to give it initially for the current membership. And then what we plan to do is to tweak it if we need to for the new members and give it again.
Oh, then go through
for the new members.
practice run.
Kind of the first one will be a practice run. So we're going to start in August, probably finish in September. Speakers should keep to the subject matter and be brief. And then we would repeat it for the next council. And it was pointed out to me that I will not be here for the next council. Neither will Pat. I have agreed to come back to the meeting to give the orientation, even if I'm not a member of the council at that time.
We have to spell check on council because it's council.
There's a lot of red lines, as it
Yeah,
has
I
to
know.
be checked.
Not counsel like lawyer.
You're right.
Just saying. It's a vision box.
Questions for Paul about.
Questions about that? And this is not, we're not looking for a vote, this is just what we plan to do starting in August.
So it's your opportunity if we miss something, if you think something is redundant. But remember when Paul in the governance committee put it together, there's a wide range of knowledge base that people come to this council. And some people have, know how the pillars work and all of that, others don't, how grants work again, so we're trying to base it on really a full range of knowledge people would have before coming on the council. So this is your opportunity to just share if you have any, if governance is moving in the right direction, or if we missed something in that process, please let Paul know.
All right, that's it.
See any hands? Thank you, a lot of work went in that, Paul, thank you.
That's all of it.
We won't just put people in chairs, or we'll give them some orientation.
It's great work, Paul, and it's really important.
Thank you.
And I'm just glad we're doing a practice run. I think it's really,
And
it's a
it'll
lot.
be
There's a
helpful
lot.
for some of the newer members
Yeah.
that haven't been here for 4
Yeah.
years.
And the public listening, it's.
All right, if you're done, Paul, we'll move on to Brian McGrath.
So I'm not gonna steal, Chassie's probably gonna cover a lot of some of the things we talked about in the meeting, so I'm gonna just focus on the. Scope of work, the conversation we just mostly had about the off-cycle grant, and I'm just that word broadly. So we're gonna work this through at the next meeting, we'll come back. Our meeting, you're all welcome, it's coming right up in a couple weeks, then we'll bring it back for a vote. So if we. Maggie's document is really well articulated, so when we fine tune that, we'll bring that back, we'll try to get that back to the council so you can have it before the meeting. So that if we are recommending that we look at an outside vendor, we can move that into here. And get someone in place, and if they are able to manage it all year long, then it could be a quick win. I use that phrase loosely as well, but it could be might be able to do this quickly. So feel free if you can join, we'll hopefully wrap that up, bring it back next month, and that's really what we're working on in the program and grants committee right now. We are down on the wire, like we probably have 6 meetings left, some of us, so. Next up will be sort of like figuring out how we get more information about community needs assessments that happen across the state, how we get data, how we work with the Moss Center. I think last month I mentioned there was a recommendation that we try to replicate the school work that's happened, the prevention work group, getting sort of expertise from outside members across the state. So if we can wrap those 2 up by November or whatever my last day is, that would be great, amongst whatever we may have to do for the HRIA with that, which hopefully is minimal. Right.
You guys will be the decision makers. And some will be voters.
So that's it, that's the 5 days.
Yeah. And we want that to come back. June.
Yes.
Get it moving forward. And Paul's moving forward, so thank you. Yes.
I think that, Joe, would it be helpful if, program and grants members come prepared already with feedback for what we want, like concrete, these are the things I wanna see, and even looking closely at Maggie's RFP proposal,
Yeah.
so we can just come in ready to go.
That's on the 26th. Good point, Tess, thank you.
Looks good. Yeah, no, it's good.
Any questions for Joe for government grant? I don't see any hands, so we're gonna move on to school funding work group. Liz, do you have anything to report?
Yes, Melissa and I have both had so much going on in our other work that this just took longer than we had anticipated. We sent out a draft report to all of our members of the committee just for their feedback. And we are planning to come to you with a report in June. So we have asked Chastity sort of sideways ask Chastity if we can come in June. Hopefully that works. And we can come in June and report and provide you with the report and their suggestions for priorities. But also they had, the group had suggestions for like, an RFP, what could be in the RFP process and data that might be useful for figuring out what are schools who've been most impacted. So more to come. Melissa, do you have anything to add?
Any questions for Liz and Melissa on the school funding? All right, well, thank you very much. I know that it's a lot of work and I know it's a busy season for a lot of you. Thank you. Can you remind me, is it the June, July meeting that's soon?
I don't think either.
Am I was thinking you were traveling.
Yeah, but that's just for.
That's something else. Okay, never mind.
Oh, finance committee.
Oh, that's finance.
There
Okay.
is no finance committee meeting this month.
Okay.
Because there wasn't anything new, or we're still waiting on some reporting stuff from finance, not our committee, from the department. And June, there's no finance meeting because it's a state holiday, and that week Elizabeth and I will be in Denver.
Okay, that was it. Okay. Okay. Business trip. All right, I'm gonna leave it now to the staff, either Elizabeth or Tiffany.
Didn't really put a whole lot together, didn't put anything together, just to give some updates, because I knew everything was gonna take a while. Contracts, this blackout date that we are in. Everything's supposed to be in by tomorrow to start for July 1. There was a delay being able to get the recovery center ones out, so they've given us some wiggle room to get signatures and get them submitted, so those can all start on July 1. We don't know about the AG yet, but there's language written in there that they'll be able to add to it. We have a bunch of amendments. I think the one worth noting is Maine family planning. Their mobile unit, I'm sure most of you know what it is. That work's expanded so much. They were looking to move some of their money around to purchase an additional van, like smaller one with a big unit, so they can do more of that work. So that's already all in their contract, so it's really just the budget. And Deb specifically, gonna put you on the spot to get some contract language to put in there about like how long it needs to remain operational after our contract's done. They're buying with that. And they'd like to come present at some point, so you'll hear from them, but not before we do this part. Non-contract stuff is just a reminder for the financial disclosures. Especially if there's a change, just to keep sending them in, so that way we have them, you don't have to like overthink things like or whatever, just what could be a conflict of interest here. Because especially when it comes to BOAs, it is very helpful to show like we have crossed all of our T's and dotted all of our I's, which everyone has, but it's just your regular reminder. Elizabeth's Google survey. If you haven't looked at it, please do it. But do you want to talk about that at all?
It's a Google survey.
Yeah, I can talk about it really quick. I can send another link. I just put together a quick survey. Paul, it may be helpful for you. We can chat about this. Just for what would else would be helpful on the Google Drive when you guys are accessing that. I thought it could be helpful for the orientation too of like what is on there. I'm thinking things like the bylaws. We can put the full MOU, just things like that.
just because right now it's really only the meeting materials. And recently we added a spreadsheet of all of the current contracts. I will, after this meeting, send you all a link with it, but just as it comes to mind, you can send as many responses as you want. Just things that would be helpful for you to have access to, in an easy place. And then again, hopefully we can use some of that feedback in the orientation for new members and things, literally anything.
And for those like me who didn't read the fine print, the Google survey is on the email that Elizabeth sent with the agenda. So it's embedded in the agenda of that.
I can
email.
That.
That's why I didn't see it. I didn't look, so I'm guilty. I will do that, Elizabeth. Thank you.
What is the Google search?
It's just a really short Google Drives or Google. I can here, I'm gonna show you all what it looks like. Share my screen very quickly.
Spend a lot of time on the Google Drive.
No.
Me neither.
Oh my God.
Um,
Those things confuse that a lot of me.
There, so you should. Yeah, and this is not what it will look like.
Yeah, I didn't see it was in the minutes.
This is what you
in the
should
agenda.
receive. And then it'll just ask you to answer.
I would say correct, Melissa.
Anything that would be useful. And I should, if I did it correctly, you should be able to either edit your response or submit as many responses as you want. If you do one and you come back and you think of more things. So either way you do it, completely fine, but I can resend that. And then while I have the screen shared, the other thing is this, I can zoom in. This is all of the contracts that we currently have out. And they're organized by when they started. And then there's brief project descriptions. There's the pillar and when each payment went out. And so this gets a little bit to what Chastity and Deb were saying. Some of these at the bottom, they don't have any dates. And so whenever we talk about the total obligated, we looks like sum this column, this is the award. And so all of these would be included, but they're not included in anything else because these dates are filled in a lot of our other. We have an Excel sheet that is built on like 8 other spreadsheets that Deb has been way too patient about allowing me to send her like 8 other spreadsheets. But a lot of that is based on the dates. So any total though does include these just because these that have kind of been paid out or we don't know when they're gonna start. Those are included, but again, included. We know that those we know that money has been obligated and this spreadsheet is in the drive, but I can again send this the link to this again, so you all have it. But these are all of the contracts that we have in effect.
Excellent.
The Recovery High School, that's the another one of the contracts happening right now, which you guys, there's a story in the meeting materials that just came out about it, but. The only other update was just talk about our time in Austin last week. I didn't think about where we were. We went to Nashville, hosted a meeting with administrators from other states. There was like 35 states plus DC represented with at least 1 and up to 3 or 4 people there. There was a lot to be learned and it was very interesting because everyone was shocked at a lot of things about us. The staff's contractors and just like the whole setup to begin with.
Shocked in a good way.
Not in a good way. Like, oh my God, how? At how frequently the council meets between the full council and committees, like, I think that was the most shock from people. There was a table of like 8 different states. They're like, what? There's like 4 public meetings a month that they're like quarterly. And as much as we talked about like we don't have capacity, it very much highlighted how under capacity we are for everything. But then also there were some things that we have flexibility on. From what I heard people talking about, myself and one other person were the only people with lived experience. Every other person, like there was a lot of state agencies, law enforcement backgrounds doing this work. A very shocking thing to hear was one person on a panel talking about everything that they learned coming into their role. They knew nothing about what any of this was about until they had to watch the documentaries about it. And that is what informed everything they know about all of this. Which that was like a little crazy to me, and I guess maybe because I've been around it in so many different ways for so long that I don't know how that would be the case, but so.
I think Maine has a large capacity, very active people with lived experience and advocates than most. When I've been on some of those calls, and the question always comes, well, how do you get them involved? Well, they've been involved in Maine since the beginning, when the opiate settlement funds, it was embedded in there. That it be part of it, and so I think it is one thing, not that we can't improve, always improve. But I think it's one of the things we do well is listening and putting in leadership roles and including people with lived experience. It's important. Very important.
Yeah, there was a lot of focus on communications. Like one point, someone looked at our table like, "Oh, we all have comms people." I wish.
So
They have entire department.
Other states have more support from their state government or something.
Yep, a lot of them are part of state government in some way or connected to the legislature. So they make recommendations and the legislature decides how it's spent. There were a couple states that were set up independently. We got set up at one point, they tried to group you by what you were like, and our table was just kind of the catch-all, the people who didn't fit in anywhere else. But there was like a state who they're a foundation, they were set up that way, they still have their council. There was a 501(c)(3), so there were a few states that had similar stuff. NASHB's gonna put together everything that they can for us, like the structures of each of those states, and so that way we can start like learning from each other a little bit better, like what's been helpful, what isn't. On the comp piece, one interesting thing was, I think it was Georgia. They partnered their version of Maine Public, and like they do an annual thing every year, like where they talk about all their work. They have a whole little news segment about it and showcase some of it. And like we don't have the capacity to have all of those things set up. So it's eye-opening, and found other avenues of support to talk through and figure out things that we don't necessarily know.
Can I just add one thing, that was, I found interesting was, I talked with a lot of people about the reporting, and because a lot of the other states, their money was either like filtered through their version of like DHHS, so it was made part of budgets of existing programs, and so, one thing that I think could be good or bad, is I think we may have a better way to track the use of our funds, just because we know exactly how much and where this money is going, and I know it can be really difficult for some of these providers it can be a burden on them to track how exact dollars, things like utilities, and attributing that back to us, and so we're trying to figure out how to do that, because again, we know we don't have that level of scrutiny. And so that's kind of that was a big conversation I had about
I think we're kind of in a unique place where because our funds are separate, we do have a little bit more oversight. But it does create a bit more work for us. I think some states are just maybe relying a little bit more on, there's kind of some uncertainty on what the oversight is gonna look like and what we're gonna be asked to turn back into anybody. And so I do think, again, there's a lot of work on us and we have collected a huge amount of information, but we're in an interesting place where we do have more individualized or much more detailed data than some of the other states about what has actually been spent and on what at the individual program level, so.
Chastity, was there, I'm guessing that there must be, I don't know if this data was shared, but there must be significant differences between the administrative amounts of, or the amounts of administrative support funds of the opioid settlement money that's spent by different states, right? Based on, you know what I mean, in other
It
words.
wasn't shared, but I think we could ask Ashby to file some of that for us.
Right. Cause ours is no more than 12%. Is that fair in my head for a reason?
You mean 12% based on what we actually spend, or that was some sort of requirement?
It's in either the statute or the MOU. That no more than 12%, I think. I'll take a question, is in there somewhere.
I'm assuming some of these states totals are 3 times what I was at.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
It makes it indirect. Maggie, do you have a question?
No, just building off of what Todd was saying, I think that data would be really useful. I think it should be, we factor this in. I think getting this info to Carol would be helpful, but also that the amount of administration that goes into a $20,000 grant sometimes is equal to the amount of administration that goes into a $2 million grant. And so the proportionality of the workload likely wouldn't be a direct relationship.
And only getting it to Carol, I've talked with Carol since we've been back, so I've shared a lot of the stuff that I got down there with her.
Good. Any other things to report?
No, not really. I'll let everyone go by 4:30.
They were busy, they didn't get time to see the city of Austin, you're in and out.
There's a lot of miles in a very, very short time.
There was what?
Walked a lot of miles in a very short time.
All right, is there any other business to come before the council? If not, then I will declare the meeting is adjourned. I thank all of those who listened. I thank all those council members that are here and enjoy your weekend. Let's cross our fingers so we have some sun, please. I kept my water. Thank you very much, everyone.